Good morning, good morning. Welcome to another episode of the TMI Show.
Not just another episode. This is episode number 50.
Big 50.
Yep.
It's the big 50.
Mm-hmm.
But reminder, we're still our show's still in its infancy, Ted. Big 50, but for a daily show, that's not.
Yeah, in podcast years, the podcast is still like a small, like, embryo.
Yeah.
It can still be legally aborted in southern states.
I was just gonna go there. I was just gonna go there. Jeez, same train of thought here. But yes, we could still be aborted at any point because it's such a new thing.
And we may be aborted. If that could happen.
It could happen. Of course, TMI, you think it's too much information. We do bring you that, like, just there right now. But it also stands for the Ted Manila Information Show. We talk about literally anything from news, politics, lifestyle, culture, gaming, visas.
Yes.
Visas. Mm-hmm. I brought up botany. Could be bird watching. Could be like Bigfoot. What else? What else, Ted? Could be anything.
Could be Sasquatch. Could be the Yeti.
It really could be.
Could be
I feel like
Loch Ness.
Same thing, no?
Yeah, I think they're kind of all big hairy dudes.
I would really like to do that one day.
Yeah, let's do it. We should do mythological creatures like the chupacabra.
That's a big thing in SoCal, where I'm from. Like that is a big thing.
The chupacabra episode of X-Files is one of my favorites.
Oh my God, I haven't thought about that forever. Anyway, as you can see, anything and everything goes on this show. We start off the show with some breaking news or whatever, whatever's the big news of the day. And then, of course, we go into our chat topic about whatever. So if you're looking for a straight-laced, button-down news program, the show is not going to be for you. Warning, we do let F-bombs fly. They get dropped occasionally, maybe more than occasionally.
Gratuitously.
So please turn down your volume if you are at work and want to continue watching. It's all the stuff that you already knew you wanted to hear about, and then random stuff you never knew that you needed to know. We are live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, so please be sure to like and follow the show if you are watching on YouTube. I implore you, if you're watching and haven't hit the subscribe button, please do so. It's not going to hurt you. We're not going to spam you. It will help us tremendously, though, get to the point of monetization and we hit these milestones that YouTube imposes on everybody. And of course, our Rumble feed is there where you can hit that subscribe button to become a $5 or more or greater monthly subscriber. And of course, the chat there is always spicy. So
true. Always.
It's always spicy in that room. So today's show, the chat topic will be about H1B visas again, but plot twist here.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be hearing the other side of this argument from India, which I feel like mainstream media has.
I'm super excited about this. I think it's super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, like literally, I have not seen anybody else anywhere.
No one's doing this.
Thanks. Big thanks to our producer.
It's literally like Elon Musk is like, oh, we want to, to be the best, we have to be able to hire from all over the world. Well, how does the whole rest of the world feel about having their best and brightest allegedly poached and dragged over to the States? And meanwhile, I guess they are suffering brain drain.
Well, and Vivek obviously making that argument, not this argument, but saying that there's a whole reason that, all the Indians are coming here. So why not hear from the other side? So literally no one else is talking about it. So very grateful for producer Wabi coming up with that angle. Very interesting. We'll be talking to a tech guy, a game developer in India. So that will be super cool. With that, let's head over to some headlines. How about it? Boom.
President Biden said in a Washington Post op-ed on the eve of today's January 6th, 4th anniversary, that there's an unrelenting effort underway to write and even erase the history of that day. Biden wrote that efforts to explain the attack away as a protest that just got out of hand and to dismiss concerns about it as some kind of partisan obsession do not reflect what really happened. Violent insurrectionists attacked the Capitol, threatened the lives of elected officials, and assaulted brave law enforcement officers, he wrote. We should be proud, well, he wrote, we should be proud that our democracy withstood this assault, and we should be glad that we will not see such a shameful attack again this year. He added, well, it could happen. We don't know. It hasn't, we're not over yet. Who noted that Vice President Harris would on Monday preside over the certification of her opponent's victory in the November election. The president said the U.S. should commit to remembering January 6, 2021 every year. No, please, no.
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 God,
no. Like, fuck no. To remember it as a day when our democracy was put to the test and prevailed, and to remember that democracy, even in America, is never guaranteed. Hey, Manila, knock, knock.
Who's there?
January 6th.
Okay, it's another day.
January
6th.
Nice. You said you'd never forget. Anyway,
I thought that was 9/11.
I know, exactly. I'm trying to update it. Representatives for Trump did not immediately respond to Axios' request for comment, but I happened to look at President-elect's feed this morning on Truth Social, and without comment, he posted a giant photo of not of the rally that preceded the insurrection on January 6th. So just like of the crowd, without any kind of words attached to it. So okay. I don't know what to make of that. I mean, that's not knowing what to make. By the way, I want to slip in, since we're talking about the Washington Post obliquely, my colleague Ann Telnis, Pulitzer Prize winning second woman ever to win the Pulitzer as a cartoonist. Cartoonist at the Washington Post since 2008, has resigned over the weekend. She had submitted a rough sketch of a cartoon depicting Jeff Bezos, the owner of the Washington Post, Dr. Pat Soon-Shiong, the owner of the billionaire owner of the LA Times, as well as the Mickey Mouse, the Disney Mickey Mouse character, and Zuckerberg and one other tech bro, I forget who it was, basically kowtowing to Donald Trump and offering him money. And that was killed. I should say it was turned down. It wasn't killed. In the parlance of cartooning, if a cartoon is killed, it's already been greenlit and approved for publication, and then it's killed before it goes to press. This was a rough that wasn't approved, which is sort of the point of a rough sketch. And anyway, she felt that was a bridge too far for censorship, and so the world of editorial cartooning. But this is all over the place. It's in the New York Times. It's on NPR. It's all over the place. She's been not giving any comments. The David Shipley, who is a former editor at the New York Times, now her editor at the Washington Post, said that he only turned it down because it was redundant, because they had already run 2 op-eds on the same exact topic, and it was like, this is overkill. We shouldn't be covering the same topic over and over. However, I would point out that when Fred Hyatt, the editorial page editor at the Washington Post, died of a heart attack a few years ago, they published, and I have the links to prove it, the Washington Post published 15 obituaries of their editorial page editor. Jimmy Carter got like 2 or 3, okay? So redundancy doesn't seem to be a big problem over at the Washington Post, just saying.
Yeah, that's something worth talking about in its own chat topic. Maybe bring in Scott again and you guys can explain. I mean, I do think it's really sad that folks in your world of cartooning are, for one reason or another, just not having, you're de-jobbed. You've been she de-jobbed herself, to be fair. She wasn't fired. Yes.
She quit. Yes. It's a resignation on principle is what that was. And you can argue about whether the principle was valid or not, but anyway.
But I mean, they're obviously WAPO. Every mainstream outlet has their angle, right? I mean, the video we have on screen right now is from NBC. Excuse me, in the J6, select committee hearing when Liz Cheney was still there. she just received her medal also last week, right? Even though she witness tampered like the mob or whatever for this J6 thing.
She gay bashed her own sister. I'm always going to say that.
Yeah, but you have like sibling rival. Yeah, so you know.
Sibling rivalry? What?
Ted's an only child, so he doesn't know. Yeah,
she gay bashed her own sister.
I'm not carrying water for Liz Cheney. I'm sorry. That's just wrong. I'm totally kidding. But Ted is an only child. I have a sibling and a couple step siblings. But yeah, in that instance, like it's wrong. But anyway, so my point is the video we're looking at about J6 is from NBC and the select committee hearing. And all you're ever going to see from NBC is like violent insurrectionist, red alert, right? Bear spray, clubs, an insurrection without any firearms of any sort. Whereas they conveniently leave out all the hundreds and thousands of hours of most of the people that went into the Capitol kind of just meandering, and literally old people taking photos, looking at the busts and reading them, in the rotunda.
Although in fairness, Manila, I mean, you're right. And by the way, I think is it HBO? I think that has like the best, that I think it's called like 4 Hours at the Capitol. They have a documentary, I think, that gives you maybe the most clear view of what really happened. And it's like you said, I mean, you see, basically it's true that 99% of the crowd dispersed and did not go into the Capitol. Right. And it went, and then a small subset of people split off and went into the Capitol. It's also true that most of the people who went in just wandered around. But that's also true about, you could say, the Syrian rebels. Most of them who walked into Assad's like palace were just like walking around. I mean, that's sort of what revolutionaries do, right? I mean, French revolutionaries walked around. Yeah, but Ted, they weren't all looting.
What are they called? HRT, HMT, Hillary Rodham Clinton, HRC. What are they called again in Syria? I forget. Al Qaeda in Syria.
Yeah.
So those guys were actually armed. HR, what are they?
HTS.
HTS. That's it. That's it. I can't, with all of these acronyms. I don't know. So what we're seeing, yes, were there some violent people there? Absolutely. I'm not denying that. But my point is, the narrative coming from NBC is that this was the whole entire day, which was not true, just patently false. And, whoever, NBC, Universal, is that who owns? I can never remember who owns who anymore.
That's right.
So, that's their prerogative. They own it. And just unfortunately, like your friend, the Bezos owned WAPO,
everyone has their agenda. Yeah, that's true.
They have their thing. So this is NBC's prerogative, but never forget, according to Joe Biden, never forget, Ted.
I mean, honestly, who forgot? And I think we should probably pay attention to that, or more to the point, Democrats should probably pay attention to that. Voters. The voters didn't care. The voters were like, they didn't vote on this. They didn't. They were like,
right.
I think most, polls showed that most people viewed J6 as shameful, including a lot of Republicans. Yeah. But that said,
shocking.
There's like, you can have an opinion about something, but the question is, how much do you care about it compared to other issues? And it was low on people's list of issues. People cared about the economy. They cared about the border. They, Democrats cared about democracy. Those were the issues that people cared about, and they just did not think this mattered. And it's not the American way to wallow on one incident. Even 9/11, people, it faded. By 2008, Republicans were not able to coast on 9/11. It's like, we're done. It's not our culture in this country.
Nobody gives a shit that AOC was worried and had to scurry through the hall.
Right. Well,
she wasn't even there, as it turns out, like physically in that region.
January 6th was a bad look, but it's like, okay,
bad luck.
But on the other hand, it is also true when you look at the video that like not much was really stopping them. right? I mean, it's
No.
kind of like you see the park guys like pulling
was
the
no real
barriers
resistance.
away so that they can get closer to the Capitol.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, well,
It's all
you're cooperating with these people. You can't really blame them for thinking that you kind of have their tacit permission. Anyway, we'll relitigate January 6th.
Yeah.
Hopefully never. Okay, so
but never forget.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will almost certainly resign today, although he has not supposedly made a final decision. However, it's looking very likely and probable. Trudeau's departure will leave the party without a permanent head at a time when polls show Liberals will badly lose to the official opposition Conservatives in an election that has to be held by October. Sources told the Globe and Mail, that's the paper up there in Toronto, that they didn't know definitely when Trudeau will announce his plans to depart, but they think it'll happen before an emergency meeting of Liberal legislators coming up this Wednesday. It's unclear whether Trudeau will leave right away or if he'll stay on as PM until a new Liberal leader is selected. I'm going to guess he'll stick around because that's sort of like how he is. But it's it's compared to his father. This is a really
like an STD,
very
but no matter
humiliating
how
way
many
to go.
antibiotics
Manila,
they
you are
give
muted. You are mutified. You are not being heard with your voice. Say something.
But I wasn't. Test.
And I still don't hear you. Oh my God, it's your mic. You can
It's
yank it and use your computer mic if you have to. I was worried that this might happen. You got to like ditch that mic. Manila, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I can keep reading the news while you fiddle with that. All right, I'm going to keep try to say something. Oh, no, nothing, nada, nothing, got nothing. Don't hear anything. Can you yank the cord and just use the computer? Still don't hear you. Nothing. I don't hear you at all. Nope. No. I had a neighbor, Mrs. Grizel. Her name was Libby, right? Which really dates the story. And she had this really great accent. She would say, no. She was also She one time she drank a little too much, and one time she drove into the garage, and right through the back of the garage there was a wall into the backyard. It was very exciting. There's a lot. We talked about it a lot. Still don't hear you.
Hold on, audience. Can you hear me?
Still don't hear you. Don't hear you. Don't hear you.
Robbie says that he can hear me. It's you,
nothing.
Ted.
I don't hear you. Got nothing. Wait, Robbie hears you?
I
Robbie,
hear you. I hear you loud and clear.
Now I don't hear you guys.
Did you mute the tab?
Robbie, can you hear me?
I hear you guys both now. Okay.
So yeah,
Yep.
Robbie
You're there.
That everyone could hear me.
Robbie
except
saved
Ted,
the day
because
from Montana, from snowy Montana.
Weird.
Although it's also snowy DC, and it's also snowy New York right now.
I was going to ask if you guys are snowing.
I'm looking at workmen.
The audience says
outside.
they can hear me.
All right.
It was just Ted.
Wait.
Yep.
All right. Well,
You
whatever.
got on those husband headphones, Ted.
What do you mean
True.
husband headphones?
So you just like don't hear your radio wife.
Oh, I see what you're saying. All right. Well, okay.
And like you've been a husband. You guys just don't hear wives. It's true.
Well,
This is true.
It's not that you can't hear; it's that you don't want to hear. All right,
That's
let's move on. President Biden.
I'm gonna leave Robbie in there. Why not?
Leave Robbie in there. President
Wait,
Biden.
unless you're doing something, Robbie.
All right.
I'm working, but I can do this.
Okay.
Okay, you're working. I'm gonna remove you.
President Biden bestowed Democratic mega donor George Soros with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, outraging right-wing critics who ripped the selection as a national disgrace. Soros, 94 years old, is among 19 people chosen to receive the nation's highest civilian honor at the White House, a group that included Bono from U2, Denzel Washington, the actor, and Hillary Clinton. George Soros spent millions of dollars electing soft-on-crime politicians that let criminals wreak havoc in our major cities, Montana Senator Tim Sheehy told the New York Post. Hillary Clinton abandoned our Navy SEALs in Libya. Joe Biden's decision to give Hillary Clinton and George Soros the Presidential Medal of Freedom is a national disgrace, he added. Soros was not on hand to receive the award in person, but the honor was accepted on his behalf by his son and political heir, Alex Soros. Soros, who's worth more than $7 billion, has spent decades financing liberal causes like defund the police and groups like Black Lives Matter. The Hungarian-born hedge fund billionaire gave more than $175 million to Democrats during the midterms 2 years ago, according to the FEC. In 2024, he funneled another $60 million for House and Senate Democrats and other liberal causes through his Democracy PAC. In 2020, he put up more than $200 million to, quote unquote, dismantle systemic racism. Well, it's been 4 years. We still got systemic racism. Maybe it's going to cost $300 million to do that. Other award recipients included primatologist Jane Goodall. I'm surprised she's even still alive. Fashion mogul Ralph Lauren. Also surprised that he's still alive. Soccer star Lionel Messi. Along with actors Michael J. Fox and Denzel Washington, NBA legend Magic Johnson, and Vogue's, this is the most weird one to me, Vogue's editor-in-chief, Anna Wintour.
Denzel looks good.
He does look good, but Anna Wintour, really?
Why?
Anna Wintour, why? I don't know.
This is the first time I've seen her without her glasses. Her big, okay.
I cannot look at her without thinking of Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada. To me, they're the same exact person.
Oh, there's Jane Goodall. God bless Jane Goodall.
Jane Goodall looks great.
She looks great. She's like 110. So here's Hillary Clinton getting it.
However, I kind of feel bad for the primates. Like, she couldn't have done this without them. How come they're not getting they're not getting a medal?
They got cases and cases of bananas, Ted. Hillary Clinton, I'll say, is having a good hair day. But outside of that, I mean, really, she's getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Like,
she's wearing one of those. She's wearing one of her Dr. Evil outfits from the election.
Well, she's what, mid-70s. I mean, it's an appropriate outfit, I would say. But I mean, we all know. I don't need to even get into why this is just shocking that she's getting this. I mean, the audience knows. Like, really, Hillary Clinton? Like, I have no problem. Well, I don't know about Bill Nye, the so-called science guy. Zero problems with Dr. Jane Goodall. Yes, like, she's earned it.
Well, although, what is the
Magic
point
Johnson?
of this? The presidential, the Medal of Freedom. Like, doesn't it seem to me like that's about people who promote
freedom?
Freedom. And Jane Goodall is highly accomplished, but I don't know that she's done anything to work on that. Ralph Lauren certainly hasn't. Neither has Denzel Washington or Michael J. Fox.
Or like Jose Andres here. It's the bearded guy.
I would say Magic Johnson has, because,
he's worked on AIDS stuff and really, as a businessman, has helped expand like jobs and stuff in the hood in Los Angeles.
That's true. That used to be that was for a long time. I lived right up on the border of Harlem, and the Magic Johnson movie theater here in New York.
You did that there too?
That's and it's right. That was my local theater. I used to walk down the hill and see movies there all the time when I lived right on the border.
Yeah, he brought his because he's a co-owner, I think, of like LA Fitness or something like that, the gym empire, or maybe he just franchises them. I don't know, but he brought gyms to what was once considered, where you saw Boys in the Hood, right, in that movie, in areas like that. He's brought health and fitness stuff to that area. I think he owns a couple Starbucks franchises, and I mean, for all the arguments that can be made against Starbucks or gentrification, I have a lot of negative things I can say about gentrification, but there are also good parts to it. Magic Johnson has actually helped gentrify and de-hood the hood in parts of like Ladera Heights in Los Angeles and South Central. He's bought up businesses and brought them back to life, and has literally brought jobs to like South Central LA. So, good on Magic Johnson, and staying in Los Angeles, right? Where, he's obviously a Lakers great. So, hits close to home for me. All these other people, I don't know. Jose Andres, he's a restaurateur.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. I think these medals are basically like, these are for my homies, people who we like.
Yeah.
That's who gets it, right? I mean, that's always...
Who was going to give Hillary Clinton one if it wasn't Joe Biden on the way out?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, she is. I mean, I'm not to say that she's the devil. I'm not going to not say she's the devil. Anyway, when the deadly 2017 Grenfell Tower blaze in London, God, it seems like that was not that long ago, led to revelations that high-rise public housing buildings across Great Britain were wrapped in flammable cladding. The UK government vowed the building contractors who were responsible would pay. 7 years later, contractors who did install those cladding panels that didn't meet fire safety standards when installed have now pretty much gotten away without, paying, according to Reuters. Cladding is a skin of insulating materials applied to the walls of a new or old building in order to improve its thermal performance. To quickly tackle the problem, the British government put up a lot of the money to allow the replacement of flammable cladding on subsidized public housing, also known as like council housing, right, in the UK. Then, to recoup the taxpayer money spent, the housing ministry said that it would work with the owners of the buildings to encourage legal claims against the contractors who installed that shitty cladding. Under UK law, the owner of a property that's been refurbished in a way that doesn't quite meet building regulations in place at the time can sue the contractors and the designers, and in some cases the manufacturers of the materials used for the costs of, fixing it. But apparently that just hasn't happened.
Yeah, but also no one gets to go to jail. No one goes to prison, Ted, because why would they? It's just like the financial crisis here. Like, why, the housing and financial crisis, all the big wigs, they don't ever get to go to prison.
The big fish always splash away. They do. Bye-bye. Swish, fish,
that's like Keir Starmer, Labor Party, he's now in power, should be holding these people to account, but no. So there you go. I mean, what else can you say about this? It's the same. It's very sad. Like, this is, I guess this is like their version of public housing, or like the projects, as we would call it here.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Well,
I mean, I'm going to say, look, the important part, seriously, I mean, as far as public safety goes there in the UK, the problem did get fixed, right? I mean, they replaced the shitty cladding. That's what matters. No, basically, this story is really just about who's held accountable for it under UK law. And, basically, the government ended up footing the bill and not getting compensated by the people responsible.
Right. And
I mean,
still,
at least it got
done.
At least
72 people died. 72 people died because of the shitty stuff that they used to erect this thing. And why didn't the UK government know from the jump that the building company used
cladding
this flammable
cladding is problematic, Manila. I mean, I'm actually I've always been interested in architectural disasters. So I don't know if you've ever been to the Guggenheim. Have you been to the Guggenheim Museum here in New York?
Yes.
So it looks kind of like a giant spiral parking garage, kind of.
Yes.
Right.
I like it, the swirliness.
It's a swirly, yeah. And one of the things I like about that museum is you can take the elevator to the top, and then you can just walk down. So it's downhill all the way. Yeah. And you see everything. Anyway, the point is, originally that museum was it's white now, but originally Frank Lloyd Wright, who was notorious for making architectural design mistakes, had it clad with red marble instead. It was all covered with red marble. Now, the thing about marble is one of its defining characteristics is it's heavy. And the pieces started falling off and nearly killing people. So they had to strip it all off and take them all down and crack and trash all this expensive Italian marble. Sorry. So it was a really dumb idea. But, anyway, these things can happen.
Design and, putting it into action are two different things. But when you're talking about government housing, this is government housing. They were responsible for this. So ultimately, Parliament and whoever was sitting in 10 Downing, I can't remember at this point, whoever was sitting in 10 Downing Street at that time for their 5 minutes as prime minister, the buck stops with them. This is public housing, not
apparently the buck stopped with the UK taxpayer in this case. Yes. Anyway, the first congestion, this one I could just do an hour on, I promise we won't. The first congestion pricing plan in the United States has gone into effect as of yesterday. with drivers heading to lower Manhattan, basically Manhattan south of 60th Street, paying $9 during peak hours, $2 and change during off-peak hours. The program, which is called Congestion Pricing Relief Program, is meant to reduce gridlocked traffic in lower Manhattan and encourage the use of public transit. This was originally proposed by former Mayor Mike Bloomberg.
So you could be lit on fire.
Yeah, exactly. In 2007, the pricing zone extends from the bottom of Central Park to the southern tip of Manhattan, where the ferries are, with the charge dropping by 75% overnight. City officials claim the toll will raise $500 million in revenue annually over the first 3 years, which, here's the part that makes me laugh, they say will be reinvested in public transportation infrastructure. And the number of New Yorkers who believe that is exactly zero. Manhattan is one of the most densely populated counties in the United States. Average taxi speeds in Midtown are now below 5 miles an hour as of early last year. One analyst pegged New York City as the world's most congested metro area, with drivers losing 101 hours due to traffic delays each and every year. So people are really, I would say some people are obviously in favor of this, but I think the politics of it were most New Yorkers don't own cars, so they're not going to care that drivers get soaked. However, a lot of New Yorkers ride taxis and Uber and Lyft, and there's going to be a surcharge for all of those rides in addition to that. And maybe most worrisome are the fired FDNY members who often rely on their own cars to lug 85 pounds of equipment. Most of them live in the outer boroughs like Brooklyn and Queens and Staten Island. And they lug these 85-pound, equipment stuff. They can't take that on the bus or on the subway. And they're going to leave their cars at home, according to the union, and they're not getting any kind of exemption for this. So basically, there's a concern that there will be a hard time responding to fires, particularly in lower Manhattan, because there just won't be enough personnel to do this. I think this was very poorly thought out. I'm very against it. Full transparency, I do own a car, but I live north of 60th Street. So I can avoid the quarantine zone. But I think what's going to happen, what I hate about it is that it's regressive. And basically it's telling rich people are just going to pay. And then presumably some poorer drivers will just not go into lower Manhattan. So it just lets rich people move around faster.
Yes. Totally.
And also it's going to, and New Yorkers are savvy people. They're going to park north of 60th Street, and all those areas, it's just going to relocate the congestion further uptown. That's all that's going to happen.
Yeah, I have a similar complaint about HOV pricing here with the HOV lanes.
Mm-hmm.
It's same thing.
Like heading out to Virginia during rush hour, and they have digital signs on the highway, right? So if you want to get over to the fast express lanes,
it can go up to $27 based on, because there's sensors on the freeways here, and they know more or less.
They have algorithms.
How many cars are on the road. So if they know that the freeways are totally bumper to bumper, then the HOV lanes tick up in price. And I've watched it happen, like where I hopped on because it says $6. I'm like, okay, I would rather, save an hour of my life for $6. And while I'm riding, it says, to get to this exit, now it's $27.
Does that mean that if you're in the middle of your drive, that your cost goes up?
Yes, you need to exit.
Oh, really? You're not allowed. You're not like grandfathered in because you already got on?
No, you need to exit because the price has now just changed on your ass while
That's so dystopian.
Yeah. So I've watched it happen. So you need to get out, and it's just really bad. And again, this just
it's so classist.
It serves the rich people who can afford to pay $30 to drive
Save
in the HOV.
Minutes.
Right, to drive on the HOV for the next 20 exits so they can get home to be with their families, because their families are more important than middle class families and working class families. But,
I hate this. I mean, I'm all for encouraging. Also, here's the thing. It's like you're taking the money before you improve the mass transit system. You're not giving people a choice. You're not saying, we're going to put all this money into mass transit and make it awesome. and then you're going to have this option. No, we still have the transit system. I mean, look, it's New York City. We have one of the most extensive mass transit systems in the country, far more than most other cities. And there's a lot right about it. But, there's a lot wrong about it too, with the homeless people and the danger, how dangerous it is, how dirty it is. The other day, I went to sit down and people stopped me because there was a turd on the seat. So it's like that. Okay.
And if you doze off, there's a chance you might get lit on fire, Ted.
God forbid, believe me, I wouldn't be able to doze off on the subway. It is terrifying. There's so many homeless people, so many deranged people with schizophrenia. I mean, believe me, I'm alert. It's like 5 cups
your
of
wits
coffee.
About you.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
All right, let's leave that right there and get to our main topic. I'm going to go ahead and change gears here.
So we've been talking, as everybody knows, about the H1B Visa controversy here on the TMI Show and how it might be affecting tech workers here in the United States, where the H1B program has prompted a 5% decline in computer science majors. People are like looking at that and they're like, I don't know, I can't compete with these H1B Visa people because they're going to earn less than me, so I'm going to get out of this. Today, we're flipping the script to consider the issue from the other side, India, which supplies the vast majority of H1B visa workers to the United States. Indian tech sector leaders are worried that the program is poaching some of their best coders and developers, creating a neo-imperialist brain drain from India and other tech centers. Joining us, we have V K Samhith. He's the founder of BornMonkie. That's a game development studio in India. He's produced more than 24 mobile games, and he's currently working on a new horror game called Occult Chambers. VK, thanks for joining us here on the TMI Show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's show the audience a little bit of the trailers of the stuff that you work on, your new one, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
All right, let's take a look right here. I'm going to put this up on the screen. All right, so this one is for 17 and over. Walk us through that. What type of game is this?
So this is a action horror game set in India. So it explores a lot of, very untouched aspects of the Indian mythology. For example, the Aghoris. Yeah, Indian mythology. The Aghoris, the rituals around these Aghoris, the dark occult activities. So these kind of aspects that are, not that heavily explored, or even the mainstream Indians kind of shun away from to deal with. So we are delving into these these topics that are both so there is a right way to talk to the god, and there is the other way to talk to the god. So Aghoris go the left side of the road. So that is the aspect that we are trying to showcase in this game. It's still that at the end of the day, they're trying to do the right thing, but their ways to deal with stuff is very different. That is the core themes of this game. And we have Dhruv, who is the main protagonist, who is trying to find his father, who has become an Aghori and is involved in great deal of weird stuff. Yeah,
the graphics are beautiful from what I've seen, what producer Robbie has shared with us. So you've done a masterful job. So speaking of that, we obviously, you've heard here in the US, there's been major talk about all these H1B visas and how the vast majority of them coming from the tech sector are coming from India. But we've only heard, the American side of this saying, oh, they're taking American jobs, blah, 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 blah. What does it look like on the other side in India where, well, if we're taking supposedly India's best and brightest, where does that leave India?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a major problem since the beginning of IITs, right? Like when IITs were The IITs are Indian Institute of Technology. These are institutions that were set up by the government to educate and increase, computer science or like overall technology graduates. But instead of helping India itself, a majority of them would leave the country. And that has been the pattern from when it started 60 years ago, 60 odd years ago. And we've still, the major choice, the majority of the choice for these, brightest minds from India, usually the number one choice would be the US. They preferred, considering the cost of living, considering the wages they could earn in these countries, the lifestyle that it offers. This has been a very and I would say attractive career style or opportunities for them. So this has been like that forever, and this has only gotten worse in the last 10 years, where the new government came in. A lot of taxation has increased drastically, where GST is close to 18% to 28% on different items. We're talking about direct taxation on items that you buy and everything. So this is quite high compared to the fact that you also have to pay a 30% tax, 30 plus based on your salary. So it kind of feels like, at least the smartest people in India, it kind of feels like, hey, why don't you just leave the country? So there's no incentive for them to stay in the country where they're paying so much, and the healthcare system or the education system is not offering much in return.
Oh, I see. So you're saying that, especially since Modi has been in power, that he has disincentivized the tech sector, the educated people in India, disincentivized them from staying.
Yeah, I mean, the pattern is that obviously they would like to say otherwise. They would just say the graph is just following the curve. But they need to address the fact that the taxation has massively increased on the middle class and people who are actually working in the tech space. So this has not been very incentive for people to stick around, and that has been very challenging for studios or like tech sectors in India. So they have to offer a lot more than and they have to compete with the tech sectors from the US. So it's a hard line to walk through and also attract people from the country, like the best talent. So it often ends up with in a loop of trying to attract talent but not able to produce a good product, and then trying to attract. It's just trying to catch up, and it just never happens because we are unable to sustain this good talent within the country for many reasons. Yeah.
It prevents growth, you would say, in tech sector in India?
Yeah, regardless of the cycle, there has been great growth in the last 10 years for sure. But I would say the acceleration at which it would have happened has always been, decreased. So like we would have been maybe 5 more years ahead if the brain drain was not this bad. We could have been closer to how China is right now, maybe 5 years behind them, but still at a significant improved state. But it has slowed down, and the incentive to stay in the country has been reduced. Every year when the new budget comes, when the new taxations are announced,
Sure.
people are outraged, and the US companies, having this H1B and whatnot, like the US laws are also not helping that. They're just attracting more and more talent. So it's just very difficult for the Indian ecosystem to like sustain this.
VK, one of the pushbacks I've read about when I was researching for today's show was that the numbers of H1B visas that are issued by the United States is not that big. It's about 85,000 a year is capped. They're not all coming from India. About 60% of them are coming from India for sure, but they're not. And then at the same time, by some studies, the number of computer science majors is up about 15%, according to studies, because in India because of this. So is it possible that maybe the H1B program does take away a certain number of bright Indian coders and developers, but also because it's encouraging more Indians to go into the sector, that in the end it's not necessarily a net negative?
Yeah, there is definitely a positive side here for sure. Like Hyderabad and Bangalore, both big cities in the south of India, have massive tech hubs, which are massive services service providers for the US and the rest of the world. So there is an upside where there is a strong ecosystem of service industry set up that is built here in India, is able to sustain the talent because there is now an opportunity, or they entered the field thinking that they would be in US or UK, but they've at least entered into the field because of that promise, right? So there is a positive angle to look at where there is massive encouragement of or incentive to enter the industry. Whether they get into the US, UK, or these countries is secondary, but now we have this influx of great talent regardless. So I would say there is a good positive side of increased talent for sure. Like the number of people entering IT is way higher. If it was not the case, if you wanted to think about it that way.
Sorry, producer Robbie has joined the chat because we're talking.
Hello.
You're specifically a game developer. Are you seeing VK? Is there any differentiation in who is being? We'll call it poached for all intents and purposes. Poached from India. Are you seeing differences in specific jobs relevant to the tech sector? Some more, so because people always say, U.S. jobs are outsourced to all the Indians, the call centers, blah blah blah. There's all those tropes, but here, this is the other side of the argument: is the brain drain.
Yeah, there's definitely for example, in video game industry, we have a lot of art being outsourced to India. That is true in the sense that we have great artists, 3D artists, 2D artists, sculpting artists that are working for the AAA companies. We have Ubisoft in Pune and Mumbai. We have EA in Hyderabad. We have Krafton, which is a big, massive Korean company behind PUBG in Bangalore. So we have these big bases set in India that are definitely providing these services to the respective countries right here sitting in India. But they are encourage, or they are provided the infrastructure, the funding from their parent companies that are sitting outside India. So there's definitely a certain amount of that aspect where India is servicing people. That is still true. But at the same time, a lot of video game professionals here in India are not satisfied with the growth of the industry itself, because to grow you need certain amount of expertise in the industry. If there is a lot of high skilled employees, high skilled workers in India, that would mean we would be able to make higher quality products, or like hardcore games or like mid-core games. But that is not happening because the brain drain happens. So we are left with opportunities where we could make only casual games, and that in turn is not great for incoming developers who want to work on these bigger things. So there is an infinite cycle of not having great products out there because we are left with not so high skilled employees. And then this continues in such a way that anytime a studio produces higher quality employees, high quality professionals, they are looking at Indian studios as a stepping stone so that they can get into these AAA studios.
VK,
so they would work. Yeah.
How do you? I mean, how many of these 80 of these, let's say, roughly 60,000 Indian tech workers who come to the United States How many do you guys get back? I mean, they lose their visas if their company is finished with them or goes out of business or cuts them loose for whatever reason. They have to go back home, right? I mean, do you get them back?
Yeah, so few of my friends here in Hyderabad are people who came back after the visa expired or whatnot, right? Like a bunch of them are still working on contract. A bunch of them have lost their jobs. So even if they come back, there is some sort of arrangement there where they could still keep working with the game studio or with the tech company. They do come back for sure, because the system is set up that way. But they also move to other countries as well. So that is another pattern that we see.
How do you, I mean, when you talk to the people who did this, I mean, there's a sense here, one of the criticisms has been that it's like indentured servitude. They come to the United States, they can't complain very much about, like, say, poor treatment, long hours, low pay, or whatever, because if their boss doesn't like them, they're gone, right? So is that a reflection of reality, or when they come back, are they like, no, it was what's their report of, did they feel like they were not able to pressure their bosses for a raise or whatever? Do they feel like indentured servants or not?
I would say that was, at least from folks that I've talked to, my close friends and whatnot, it was always that these people worked on some of the bigger titles like AAA games and big studios. So their experience might not be the same for everyone, but they had fairly, clean and decent work culture in their companies. They were more than happy to work on these titles, shipping these titles. They had great pride in working with the rest of the industry. For sure, there could have been certain amount of fear that they might not be able to push their promotions or ask for a raise when they wanted to, considering they might be sent back a few months later to India and whatnot. So there will be few situations where they might have felt weak, but most of their experience has been that it has been great working with these AAA developers, these AAA studios, and they were never genuinely exploited, if that is the word we are looking for.
Yeah.
Few of them also had
well, it's a
more
relative
benefits
term.
like,
It's a
yes,
relative term, right, VK? So, depending on how you're used to being treated wherever you're from, coming to the U.S. where there are labor laws, so
yes.
it's a relative, conversation to each individual person. And with that, because it's relative, especially because the mostly, let's just say young men, because mostly it's young men. Let's face it, right? And they come to the US, they make US dollars, even though they could be earning more, but that's, as compared to some American worker in the same job position, but that's a different conversation, right? But the money that they do earn is in US dollars. And we have to imagine, because I'm Asian too, and I understand the culture, right? There's a great deal of remittances that go back to mom or dad or grandma and grandpa family. You got to consider that's got to be a boon for those young men, though, right? Which is incentivizing them to come to the US.
Yeah, definitely. The amount of money even the juniors make in video game industry is quite sizable compared to what we pay here, considering the lifestyle and the money that we make ourselves as studios. So that is marginally different. We are looking at massive, difference in dollars, where they could afford to buy a house here in India and still keep their job. And that is a pattern that we've seen a lot with my friends, where they've paid off their student debts, whatever it was, that were there here in India. And there are instances where they are permanently stuck in US as well because of their student debt. So it's the coin has two sides. So there has been people who are who accepted offers just so that they could at least pay a portion of their student debt, right? There's definitely few friends who accepted jobs which other people from other countries would have got paid higher for the same position. They definitely had accepted these jobs just so that they can get out of college and have a real job in the industry. Especially video game industry being so hard to break in, they definitely are pressured into taking low-paying entry-level jobs in the industry.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Case, yes. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought there, VK, and I'll jump in. So what my question is, and y'all, for full disclosure, as y'all know, I am a gaming content creator. I stream on YouTube and on Rumble. And on last Thursday, I was actually able to do a test play of the Occult Chambers game. If you like horror, it's a great game. Dark as hell. I got lost. VK comes to the chat, says, "Hey, you're lost. You're going the wrong way." It was great. But now what my question is especially here in the West with Western gamers, there is a big perception that the AAA studios, they're too afraid to make games that are controversial or edgy.
Hold on. For non-gamers, is AAA studios like these big ones like
that's
EA
the big boys.
And,
that's
okay.
the big boys. So,
yes.
Yeah. So if you're not a gamer, think Tesla, Ford Motors, the big boys. That's the AAA studios. And a lot of them, what they're doing is that they're kind of they're making games that are more made around having to go to a game store, have to buy items, buy what they call microtransactions, buy little perks that kind of help you get through, or they just come out with a game that's very preachy, kind of like Dragon Age: The Veilguard. I thought the gameplay was the gameplay was fun. The story sucked, at least in my opinion. And so a lot of Western gamers, they are going to Asian studios or small independent ones like BornMonkie, which is why I first met VK in the first place. Great guy, great company. How are Asian games how are y'all attracting the Western audience? Is it because of the backlash against political correctness, or are y'all just making better games?
I mean, at this point, it's more about, fresh content, I feel. There's been a lot of video games that were set in Europe, a bit more in terms of numbers in US. So we have games that have explored their own cultures. The reason why Assassin's Creed as a franchise works is they keep changing the setting, but even they have lost their way with the new games. What's happening here is at least the new gen gamers are like people who are tired of these old mechanics that just have not changed at all for a while. They want to have new experiences, not just a reskin of whatever they previously bought. So they're looking for fresh experiences. I've seen Indonesian horror done well recently. I talked to a publisher. He said that there was an Indonesian horror game that they made. It sold very well in Indonesia and then also a bit more in Europe. So I feel like people are looking for fresh experiences and definitely games that are just trying to be video games, right? Like they're not trying to be a moral police or trying to teach you what's right or wrong and just be entertaining. So games recently from Asia, I mean, this 2024 has been a great year for Asian games, like from Stellar Blade to Wukong from China. That they've done great games that have redefined what video games were supposed to be, right? Like the good old video games, just trying to entertain the gamers, not trying to teach you something. I mean, there is a place and time within the game where you teach someone something, but the entire game's point is necessarily not supposed to be revenge is bad or something like that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I like, and for people who aren't gamers, sorry, I'm going to bore you a little bit, but I like what's called an open sandbox game where I can go in, I can explore, where I get to make the decision. And it seems more and more Western gaming companies, they are trying to pigeonhole you, like you have to go a certain way, your character has to act a certain way or you get punished. I don't like that. That's one of the reasons I like Baldur's Gate 3 so much. If I want to be a genocidal maniac, I can do this. And that's one of the reasons
you could just join the IDF.
Right, why not?
So this, like, let me throw this at you two gamers, because I think I'm speaking for me and Ted. I think neither Ted or I are gamers, but
Right.
Is it because is the gaming space becoming overly politically correct in the
Oh yeah,
West?
yes.
Yeah.
Huh.
So what was happening to movies, at least Hollywood? We've been getting lately a lot of movies that are not greatly being appreciated by the wide audience, but still they're being made. Uh, just like that, when I feel like when a medium becomes very successful, it attracts the wrong parties. Like the wrong people get attracted to these industries, and they start to push in their agendas, and then eventually it just
Mhm.
loses its touch.
Mm.
What's happening right now is before, like at least 2010, 2015s were about what would gamers like, how would we make more sales by giving them what they want. Now it has been like, how do we make these gamers understand our agendas? How do we make sure
Like woke
we get
mostly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that is one problem there. Yeah, yes.
Oh,
So
Uh,
that's one
so
of the
like
reasons
the
why. Oh, go ahead, Manila.
cartoon big boobs and stuff, or not cartoon gaming, like in gamings, the artwork, the big boobs and gratuitous,
mm,
gratuitous sexual innuendo is no longer accepted, I guess, in Western
yep.
game world.
Yeah, so there's always been a set of games that have done this hyper sexualization of the characters, right? Like always been a set of games that have done that, and they have attracted a certain set of audience. So that has always stayed in gaming. But there was the rest of the game where there were beautiful characters, not overly done. We still had great looking, main characters. We still had, stories being told that were universal rather than, you know putting a certain demographic in the center. So we had gaming games like that, and now we have games like Forspoken, or like games like Dragon Age Railguard, where they are literally telling to the player through like very simple dialogues that this character is oriented this way, this character has this identity. So it has become very very much like breaking the fourth wall and telling, hey, listen to my agendas that I have. uh, it's too transparent at this point that we can tell that you're preaching to us. So I mean, for example, I see Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That's a show I'm pretty sure you guys know.
Yes,
um,
yes.
I mean, that is a show that has done, diversity very well. Like, all the characters, there were a bunch of characters that were very, sexually oriented very differently, but they pulled off these characters very well. So there is a certain way to, tell stories. There is a certain way to have diversity, but they're going about it in the wrong way, and they're holding on to all the wrong things and turning off players.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad. Like, for example, if you ever watch any of the old, played any of the old Resident Evil games, like Resident Evil 4 or something, Ada Wong is a great example. She's an Asian and very pretty, very sassy, very smart, and very much against the submissive Asian female trope. I mean, she is kind of like an anti-hero. Nowadays, there's a lot of pushback against her, saying, well, she's too sexy, she's too smart, she's too dangerous. And it's just like, stay in your lane. That's why, and again, I'm a content creator. I don't work for BornMonkie. I have never talked to VK before now, no, on a chat. I don't work for this man, but I 100% support him because independent studios are making a good quality game. And if you're a gamer, you got to support them with your dollars. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
If you want crap games, keep buying your
Art
BioWare
also.
games.
I'm not a gamer, but I do when I see them visually, I'm not offended by cartoon boobs, so so I'm not bothered by that. But when I don't play games, but when I kind of peruse the world, I appreciate the artwork and the effort that's put in, the creativity that's put into this.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. Obviously, it's programming. It's not just like Picasso. Obviously that's a lot of work, but it's one piece, right? And it's on tangible canvas, and it's there, and you can look at it. this is like code and code and code to make it look like this and to make it move. So I can appreciate that sort of art. Do you foresee in particularly in this gaming world and with people like Elon Musk, big tech giants like that, making tech, I guess, cool? Because he's kind of, whatever anybody thinks of Elon Musk, he's kind of like the bad boy of tech, right? Do you foresee like at least in the gaming world, them kind of in 2025 and going forward, that guys in the tech world are now kind of overlapping with like the manosphere?
I mean, that's hard to predict for sure, but there's been like a healthy balance of, hey, we don't like this, you should go back to making good games. So, for example, Ubisoft launched their, teasers and trailers for their upcoming game, AC Shadows, which had a black man as one of the samurais, and then it had a massive outrage from the Japanese audience.
Wow.
Yeah, so now they had to take their time to see, or how to fix that and whatnot. But they've already made a huge mistake of offending a huge gaming audience, right? Japan is not a joke for video games. So stuff like this, where they're trying to inject their own ideas, whether it was the case or not is up to debate until the game comes out. But from the marketing, it looked like they were saying, hey, we would give you a Japanese game, but we'd also throw in a colored character as well. So it was a bit problematic, and now Ubisoft is at a very bad state. Their shares are all-time low. They're trying to recover. So you can see that audience are pushing back. They're telling them very clearly that what they what they want in video games. But I would say there is still enough money left for these these studios that are trying to preach. It will go on until probably 26, if I'm not wrong, and then things will start to change. There's still some gas left in those weird games.
When do you think Occult Chambers will be released? Are y'all planning on releasing it this year?
26 would be the year. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Next year.
Awesome. Next year.
Wow.
Okay, gotcha.
Wow. It really takes that long and a lot of manpower.
I mean, we are just like, 8 people. We are small in the studio. Previously, like few years back, a game of this scale and scope would have been impossible for 8 people to do. But with all the, for example, Unreal Engine and all its, Unreal Engine is the software, the programming software that we use to make video games. This has democratized making high quality games for indie studios. So now we can make these, great looking games. Obviously, there is still work that has to be put in from our end, but all that tech is democratized. We get to use the same tech that the big boys are using in the US and whatnot. So yeah, like there is a massive change in how accessible the tech is, and now people who actually want to make games that are enjoyed by gamers, they're getting a chance to do it right from their own countries. So I feel like what 2024 was a lot of Asian games, I feel you'll see more of these throughout 25 and 26 as well. And because of the massive hole that US has created, or like the Western games have created by alienating gamers, I think there is enough space for us to come in.
Good.
One moment, I got a piece of breaking news here. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, has officially announced his resignation just now. That's all. It has nothing to do with gaming. But he's also one of those woke people that, remember, he proposed the legislation based on online activities that he could retroactively punish you for what you've posted on social media, if it's somehow negative, or like, let's say anti-woke, for example, right? Or maybe you made a game that Justin Trudeau found offensive. He proposed legislation that could punish people, penalize you, jail you. He has just announced his resignation. So I just want to put that breaking news in there. It's a Commonwealth country, so India knows a lot about that, obviously. So this is just, this is one of those people. I think what we're seeing here, VK, is a pushback against wokeism that we've seen over the last 10 years. And I think a lot of it, because the young people are all online and playing games, I think part of the pushback is starting with gamers, and that your community doesn't accept this kind of ideology.
Yeah, I mean, the point is all about, telling true stories, like, being very genuine. And gamers, are very good at smelling the BS. Like they know when it's not, crafted with good faith. So that has always been there. And whenever bad games have come out that are just trying to preach, they've been called out for sure. Like,
and let's face
that's
it,
been the
it's just
case.
art. It's art also, right? Like this is expression, and for me, that's how I view it, because I'm not a gamer, but I look at this as art, and I see the community. A lot of people have trash talked the gamer community, and I don't, because I've actually been on the other side of it, witnessing how games are made here in the US at a certain studio in Los Angeles. But I have appreciation for this, but there's the art aspect, which Ted can appreciate, because this is it's expression. It's the First Amendment, at least we have here in the US, and people are afraid to do that, to First Amendment here in the US, right, Ted?
True. Sadly, very, very true.
So how can people support BornMonkie, VK? Like if people are watching this, if they're gamers, they like what they see, how can they support your little 8-man company? What can we do? How can we help you out?
You could probably go to the Steam and wishlist the game. That would be great. Yeah, that is good enough. Yeah.
Very good. We appreciate so much insight that you brought to this conversation, VK, because really, as we were saying earlier before you came on, is most Americans or most Westerners have only heard, the argument coming from the West, coming from America, like the two sides that are fighting here in the US, the Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, their argument about why they want H1B visas. And then you hear the other people that are, super pro MAGA that say this is bad for the US. But on the flip side, why H1B visas are bad for India as well,
For India,
right? And
yeah.
And people don't think about that, and I think it's an important conversation to be had. And it just so happens that it happens to be particularly gaming that you're doing, and it comes with cool visuals. So I appreciate you sharing your trailers with us, and wish you much luck, and hopefully you'll be back with us when the game debuts. It takes a long time, as you see, so I hope people can appreciate that. Thank you so much, VK, because you're not just a gamer guy. You're not just, a game developer. You actually live, breathe, and work in this space in your home country. And you're, saying something that most Westerners have not bothered to even think about how this can potentially hurt India when you take away the people that could potentially grow the sector at home. And then the US goes and says, pardon my language, but then they say, oh, these shithole countries, right?
Yep.
They go and complain. Well, you're taking away a lot of the people that would otherwise be changing their home country for the better to bring them.
Well, it's theft. I mean, our government does not have the right to not educate our people, then just to steal the educated people from another nation that another country's taxpayers paid to educate in the first place.
There's that too.
It's wrong.
True.
Yeah, this is like draining the wealth out of the country and then calling the country poor, right? Like it's
there you go.
Like
yes.
Yeah.
VK, I mean, come on. The UK and US are famous for doing such things. So, we're just continuing our tradition. So
True.
Thank you so much for joining us, VK. Hope you'll come back and join us
I would love it.
pretty soon. I hope. We don't know a lot of Indian game tech guys or game makers, so it's very cool to have you in our Rolodex. Thank you so much.
So it was great.
Thank you, VK.
When I was streaming this game on Thursday, I was lost as a goose in a snowstorm, and he came into my YouTube channel onto the stream and said, Putin, you're going the wrong way. You got to go across the bridge. It was freaking hilarious. The game is freaking dark. If you haven't seen the stream, go watch. It is dark. I was just waiting for something just to jump out and just skewer me. It was freaking awesome.
Cool. It looks really, really cool. So
it was badass. Great game.
Your launch. Thank you, VK. We'll see you again, I hope.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, how lovely is he, and very knowledgeable.
Awesome guy. I mean, as you know, I will talk to anybody online, and I just started chatting with him on X, and I've known VK now for, maybe 8 months or so, give or take.
Cool.
Super nice guy, great guy, and wicked smart, as y'all can see.
Yeah, as we can see. So, it's a great angle. I'm glad you brought that to our attention, Robbie, and I'm glad that you happen to know somebody in the tech sector in India.
Super interesting, for sure.
Cold emailing. Yeah, very interesting angle. All right, producer Robbie, I'm going to get rid of you.
Bye-bye.
Getting you off the screen. Thank you for bringing VK on. He was great. All right, Ted. That's going to do it for us.
It will.
For this Monday. And we were there for a little bit of breaking news, right? With Justin Trudeau stepping down. Now, if we can find a Canadian, a hoser, to join us and tell us what the hell is happening in the Great White North.
You could probably do that.
I feel like there are so many of them. They speak English, most of them.
Pretty much, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I feel like they could join us.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. All right. So that does it for us. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you are on YouTube, once again, if you have tuned in on YouTube and are only watching and haven't subscribed, please do hit that subscribe button so you can help us get monetized. We have to hit that magic subscriber number of 500. We're not that far off. So please help us get there. And if you are on Rumble, if you are on the desktop, if you are in that financial position to help us out, please hit that subscribe button that's below the chat line and consider being just a $5 a month subscriber to help us stay afloat and pay the bills, at least. I mean, pay the electric, the online bills that we have to pay, Ted and I, to just keep this thing going, to pay who do you have? Time Warner or something like that?
A Cablevision.
Cablevision. That's a real thing?
Yeah, it's it is. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought that was something Tina Fey was making fun of on 30 Rock.
Actually, I'm kind of lying. I have Spectrum now. Yeah.
Oh, there's very few. We have.
Yeah.
Verizon,
I used to have Cablevision. So. I kind of like fantasize. Cablevision is on Long Island. They also own New York Newsday. And
I thought that was.
I don't know if it's still true, but I loved them because when you called customer service, a person picked up the phone. Like no phone tree. It was just hey, what's going on? It's like, oh, my cable's out. Okay, stay on hold. And they would take care of it. Yeah.
Well, now you're on Spectrum and I'm on Verizon because we have no options and there's no net neutrality. But again, we got to pay the piper. So if you're in the position, please do consider helping us out so we can keep doing what we're doing here if you're enjoying what you're seeing. So that'll do it. We'll be back here again tomorrow on Tuesday.
10 o'clock.
Episode 50. So there you go.
Big number 5-1 tomorrow.
Hope we get to 100, Ted. That'll be like,
that'd be
pretty cool. That'd be nice. All right, guys. All right. Thank you so much. Adios, amigos. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for being here.
Au revoir.
Bye, everybody.